we have. But I think without any further ado, let's just jump right into the session. And today's session is going to be very exciting. It's a very cool topic. It's about 10 things that every first time founder must know. It's a practical conversation around key lessons, financial fundamentals, strategic insights, a lot of good things that we are supposed to know. And this is going to be taken by Sambhav Malhotra, who's a first attempt CA accountant, which is a very cool thing. And I think, Sambhav, when we jump right into the session, you've got to give us a little one-liner about what that was. And he's a certified professional. Sambhav has over 15 years of experience working with startups, early stage businesses across finance, compliance, fundraising readiness, and strategic growth. I think he's the perfect one to go to learn the best advice as a first time founder. I think without any further ado, Sambhav, the stage is yours. To you. And yes, I want to open with the first question. Tell us, how was the experience of being first a CA person?
Thank you, Sadia, for the introduction and good question to start off with. I still remember when I saw that mark sheet. In one of my subjects, I was at a cutoff. Usually, people at our age in 2009 who were not able to qualify was that one paper which they were kind of failing. It was around technology for CAs. Now there's AI and all, but at that point of time, there was just one subject on technology for us. And most of us who were at the final year were trying to bypass that one subject. कि किस तरीके से ये निकल जाए, so we'll become an accountant. For me, it was like 4100, चलो यार सीए बन गए, बाकी टेक्नोलॉजी बाद में देखेंगे. Fast forward 12 years, I think without technology we won't sustain in the next 6 months. So that has been a journey so far. First attempt, yes. To be honest, in our own firm, we've always said that don't worry on people coming on first attempts. Even if there are multiple attempts, they might know 2-3 times more than people who know it on first attempt. But if you go about big fours and all, they do have that criteria that if you are first attempt, then only please apply. Yeah, so I'm a little neutral on this. I believe that's what the startup ecosystem has taught me. Skills matter more than degrees. So yeah, thank you. And I'll begin with the session with a little introduction of mine, which also has a little bit of startup insight of how I ended up working in a startup ecosystem before I go on to a formal deck that I have prepared. But it's a very small cohort that I believe we can engage with each other and have practical insights by whatever is going on. If you're a first time founder, just use the chat box. Just let us know in the chat box which city you're joining from. Are you a first time founder? And let's just interact at the end of the deck of the questions that are popping up in your mind. With a little 15-year experience, I think solving for those intricacies which is coming real time practically in your mind would be more valuable. Of course, the deck that we talk about will always gaze into the journey that we have had. But coming back to why startup ecosystem for a chartered accountant back in 2009, nobody talked about it. Flipkart exit happened in 9, right? That's where the whole buzz started happening. For me, it was like I qualified in 2009 first attempt, but I lost the way. And what next? What is a chartered accountant supposed to do? Should I practice? Should I do a job? I failed twice or thrice before I figured out what exactly I have to do. I was lucky enough to finally find my ikigai in a startup ecosystem. I decided I will join. I had an idea that I'll join Air Force. Uh, Went into applying for it. Spent 5 days. I was the only CA for the job, and I was confident I'll get selected. I was rejected badly. Sent back the fifth day from an SSB, and the way they send back civilians, I think everybody should try that once in a lifetime. Okay, can't make to the Air Force. Okay, execution went wrong. Let's try SAP. SAP at that point of time used to have that FICO modules for us, finance, costing. Did the course, few lakh rupees spent. Never gave the exam. Never got the certification. Didn't like it. I thought I'll enjoy it, but then the certification. By the time I reached the certification examination, it didn't click. It didn't click as a long term career option that I can choose. Went around, still continued with my practice. Luckily, came across few founders back in 2009 who came back from US after the recession. The buzz was there would be few sectors that would be recession proof. Let's start building something. on that front. That was my early years of qualification. For me, startup ecosystem was a very new space. Uh, got lucky, got a chance to look at it very closely back in 2009. And I was working with academically very, very qualified folks, gold medalists, IIT, IIMs, VRS retired, IRS officers, IAS officers, who were trying to build something in the education space back then, which was like a Byju's before a Byju's. It sounded like that's something very new. Let's just figure out what's happening there. Uh, Looked at the journey for about 3 4 years. The company raised about 15 20 million dollars at that point of time, but didn't succeed. 3 years 4 years down the line, I was a part of that journey, and I realized what the hell just happened. These were the highest academic qualified folks that could have done it, but it didn't happen. And then there were two, three, four stories that unfolded over 9 to 13. And then the idea was that clicked. If academically so much qualified founders or business owners have not been able to crack it, it doesn't seem so easy. And with the kind of demography that India has, there is a big, big problem out there to be solved. And then finally, you found an idea that can be executed well. And that's when we started off a special purpose vehicle in SPV called as Startup Movers, where the idea is work with early stage founders, first time founders, and see how we can help the journeys go together, grow together, and ensure this failure rates that exist in the Indian startup ecosystem. Of course, the aspiration has always been to go global, but let's work with Indian founders and improve their success rates and improve their growth stories. While we have been done that journey from 13 onwards till date, we've been running this company bootstrapped, which primarily works around early stage startup founders in shaping them up, growing with them, and then if things don't fall in place, giving the right platform to seize things also. The Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh of our mythology, the creator, the runner, and then you have to destroy it also, because if you don't destroy it, if it has already failed, then also it comes back and bites you. So to begin with, I'm just sharing my screen. If you can confirm it's visible, that would be great. Can someone confirm if a full screen is visible, please, through an audio?
Yeah, it's visible.
Perfect. Now, there are not just 10 things that I can talk about. There are n number of things as an experience I can share with you guys, a practical insight on what goes into a founder's, early stage founder's life when they start building a company. But let's just, for the sake of time, focus on what little deck I have prepared, and then let's deep dive into your questions also. Why this session matters, right? So, the mistakes that you do early on might seem चलो starting ये अभी experiment कर लेते हैं कोई बात नहीं. One typical problem statement we see is ठीक है अभी Excel sheets पे काम हो जाएगा. All roles a founder can do. I don't need an expert. Why should I start spending? I can do this research through chat GPTs and my own research. Then such mistakes along with some bigger ones, right? Who my co-founder should be, how my equity should look like, what all the documentations I need to do. So there is a little bit of research that happens before you go into execution, right? So this session will focus on how you can avoid doing such early stage mistakes that will bring in their domino effect later on to help you grow faster. How you can be investor ready, how you can build foundations that can help you scale and raise faster from investors. And even if you are bootstrapped, how you can scale faster with right set of foundations that you can build in your early stage business. And then how do you move from just a normal idea to an execution? Because ideas just don't matter. There can be a number of ideas. It is execution that matters. So do you have clarity on what you are doing? Do you have clarity on the structure that you are building? How confident you are on solving that problem? Are you structuring it before being confident? So all of that we'll solve for in the next 30 40 minutes, and that's how the roadmap will look like from an idea to a fundraise DD. What all is covered in between? What are the common mistakes that founders do? We'll talk about that in this session. So it's about planning to avoid pain later and building it right from day one. We are in 15th year, we don't even call it day zero. One of our taglines that we use internally with the team is it's still day zero. And that's how it helps you scale much, much faster. So problem number one, let's start with the founder. I consider myself a day zero founder still today. And we'll start with validation. I gave you my own example of how I will choose a path that is validated for something that I will enjoy working. A degree is something that I'm getting for my academic interest. But sometimes you hit a stage in life where you have to figure out what exactly you want to do with it, right? So validation is very, very important, and you have to structure with intention. Your idea is not your company. You have to start off with not just the solution, you have to also start off with the right problem statement. Are you going in the right direction to solve the right problem? Are you just copying it out? Is it something that you faced on your own? What has been the research in finding or validating that problem? Is it becoming a part of your actual pitch that is going out? Actually matters, right? The storytelling is more important at day zero versus just exactly going into the numbers, because actually there is no number. It is more about your own confidence, your own pitching style, your own storytelling of what exactly you're trying to solve. That matters more. And that pitching, that storytelling only comes when your problem is well validated, that you're solving the right thing at the right time and with the right intention. The right thing might still be okay. The right time is also very, very important. Most of the failures that I saw early in my career were ideas that are now very prominent. So they might not have been a great ideas at that point of time, but they became great now. So people who started it at that point of time were probably before time, or they kind of came in before time to solve for it. Market was not ready for it. But now we see similar sort of ideas that are picking up a lot of traction. So all of those questioning needs to happen today. Know exactly who has the pain. Who are you trying to solve for? Some ideas we see coming from founders who themselves face that issue. Somebody is building in a finance compliance landscape like us. Somebody is building it in like us a regulatory landscape. Somebody is building a SaaS product. Somebody is doing space tech. Somebody is doing deep tech. Everybody has figured out certain pain points that they are trying to solve for. How you are connected to that pain point? Is it your own? Have you been able to witness it upfront? Do you have exactly idea what it's going to happen when that pain subsides and you solve for it? So know exactly who the customer is, whom you are trying to solve for it. Test willingness to pay early. There was a time in this ecosystem when traction used to be a very important metric. Traction is, I built an app, I have 2 lakh followers, I have 2 lakh people who downloaded it, they are using it. Oh, very good. That's a good traction to have. Now I have started charging them 5,000 a month, and all of them vanished because there was whatever I've tried to build is now available in the market as a premium tool. So whatever I built for 2 lakh people, there is no willingness to pay now, right? So you have to figure out whether you will be able to earn hard cash for that, whatever you are building. It's a for-profit business in the end that you want to work for. So if it's for profit, the willingness to pay early should definitely be there. And build an MVP, don't build a masterpiece. When you start in your journey, you have a problem statement, you start working on various solutions, pick the right solution that you feel could be acceptable in the market, build a prototype, build your minimum viable product to begin with. Because if you start building everything together, things don't work. Typical example, if I have to say, I'll take an example of one of our companies that is expanding into B2B landscape. They're opening up their centers also. They're also willing to open a AI platform. They're also willing to do a D2C. And they're doing everything together and are trying to figure out in the market if they have interest from investors. Investor never likes so much of horizontal expansion. They like focus early on. Tell us what is the most viable thing you are trying to solve for. Can you just prove it to us in the minimum of the problem statement or MVP that you prepare? Yes, we can do that. Build an MVP, get the traction. Don't build a masterpiece upfront, because in trying to achieve perfection, you might compromise on progress. Early on, progress matters because perfection is something that you never attain. It's a continuous journey, but you can't compromise on progress just for the sake of I want to be a perfectionist onto something at day zero. So do not build a palace for a problem that might just be solved with a chair for now. Build a chair, build a table, build a room around it, build the lightning, the TV, the structure, and then move on from there. That's how a strategic startup build up helps versus doing everything together from day zero. So validate your ideas. Ideas just don't matter on its own. It's execution that matters. I am a big fan of people saying idea छुपा के रखो, बताना नहीं किसी को, ये तो copy हो जाएगा. Um, you're the first ones doing in the market. Even if you have been the first one, even if you have captured the market, there are enough examples for people coming in second and eating out your market share. So it's execution that matters more than just your idea. So your idea is not the company. Your execution story is what you're building the structure for. Just checking. I hope I'm aligned so far. If people are okay with English, if people feel that a little bit of Hindi and English could help, I could shift the tone. So you can put that up in the chat box. Happy to do that. So let's start off with a storyline. I had an idea of back in 13. I had this idea of, oh, if a found such an academic brilliant founder is struggling, what about the young founder that are going to come forward with? They don't understand finance. They don't understand compliance. How can we help them? Yes, we can help them. Our intent was to grow with the founder. But the idea was, let's solve it by solving it very early stage for them. What all we can solve? We can solve A to Z, from idea to from incorporation to IPO, whatever they want, we can solve it. Should we start solving everything? No. Let's just focus on early stage. How to set the structure, how to bring in the compliance, how to do the registrations, how to build the very first team in your finance and accounts, how should governance look like, how much a founder should focus on finance and compliance, how can we help them grow faster. Let's just start off with few founder journeys and learn from them. One of the things that we started learning upfront is how to bring the structure into the company, right? And then structuring itself becomes a question of, I don't want to do everything today. Incorporation, do not start it wrong. Acha, theek hai, I think I can solve an idea. Let me just start a private limited company. No, that's a big responsibility and a big liability that comes to you without any uh, execution strategy and a long-term vision in place. You just can't open a private limited company today with an intention. Okay, I'll figure it out what I have to do. You just can't do it by having 10 to 20 ideas and then say, ठीक है इनमें से कोई एक idea I'll select and then we'll see. अभी तो फिलहाल एक private limited बना के अपने आप को director को बोले उसी से हमको confidence आ जाएगा. Don't ever do that. That's why we have multiple entity structures to choose from. That is why you can't do private limited on day zero itself without the confidence, because you are going and entering into a zone where it's a continuous process to keep it alive. It's a separate legal entity. You have to keep it alive. And when you have to keep something alive, you have to give it food, you have to give it fuel. And this is something that will take a lot of your time. To understand why you need it today, whether you need it today or not, that is very important question. आज बनानी भी है कि नहीं बनानी. I'm a first time founder. मैं शायद अपनी प्रॉब्लम वैलिडेट करने के लिए प्रोप्राइटरशिप से भी काम चला सकता हूँ या चला सकती हूँ. या ठीक है अभी लेट्स डू वन थिंग यार, यू आर ऑल्सो वर्किंग, आई एम ऑल्सो वर्किंग, लेट्स जस्ट डू अ नॉर्मल पार्टनरशिप फर्म, थोड़ा वैलिडेट कर लेते हैं, उसके बाद प्राइवेट लिमिटेड बनाएंगे. पता लगे वैलिडेशन में फेल हो गए तो क्यों करेंगे, वाई विल वी लूज आवर जॉब. और वन पार्टनर से ठीक है आई एम गोइंग फुल टाइम, तू अपना जॉब कंटिन्यू करता रहे, एंड देन इट्स लाइक चल प्राइवेट लिमिटेड बना लेते हैं, मैं तो जॉब कर रहा हूँ, अभी मैं किसी को फैमिली में वो बना दूंगा एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट. But are you at that stage where you can go ahead and like, we have the skin in the game, let's go for it? That question of confidence needs to be answered upfront. Otherwise, it ends up becoming a liability for you more than an asset, right? So the incorporation itself of a private limited company is a decision that you need to take very carefully. That on day zero, whether you even need it. अगर research करना है तो you can rather do it on a proprietorship or a partnership. Let's just play around with a few transactions. Let's see how the market is reacting. Gather some data. I don't even have a co-founder. तो भी co-founder ढूंढना है मुझे. पता नहीं I'll go into it full time or not. Whenever there is lack of conviction, don't go into structuring. Solve the conviction first before you start structuring things. Set founder shareholding carefully from day one. That is very important point. We'll discuss it in other points as well. It can't be equal. It can't be without any formal variable matrix on which it is based. So कौन कितना own करेगा is very important to decide, and it has to be done from day one. Not just how it should be looking at day one, but how it should look as you progress. How other different variable and matrix will shift it. Who will be directors? Capital क्या कौन डालेगा? Documentation बिल्कुल ठीक है कि नहीं है? When you say documentation, one of the critical aspects when you are incorporating a private limited company is, I don't have an address. I'm staying in Mumbai, but my hometown is in Patna. Should I open it in Patna? Should I open it in Mumbai? Mumbai, I have a rental property, but I don't even know whether I'll be staying in Mumbai for long. This business will be exporting outside India. So a lot of those questions come into picture, and that's when you decide, okay, let's build it in Bombay. Bombay is a bigger city. Administratively, it will be easier to manage. We have so many. It's such a volumetric business that you will be a small fish in a big pond, so it will be easy to manage. Back in Patna, if you start building it, or back in say tier 4, tier 3, any other city that for that matter, you could be a big fish very early on. So all those things will decide which state you have to register the company in. Why? Because changing the state later on is a problem. So again, you when you're incorporating, you just go ahead, incorporate. For 2 months down the line, you realize, oh, Bihar mein ho gaya, to Maharashtra mein karna tha for some reason. Now changing it from one state to other is a 3 to 6 months process, lakh, 1.5 lakh rupees, just because we didn't give it a thought, right? We started off a company, how much capital we need? यार अभी let's just do it 10,000 अभी पैसे नहीं है, कैप शेयर कैपिटल के पैसे कौन देगा स्टैम्प ड्यूटी के, अभी कम रखते हैं. तो started off with 10,000 and then we realize अब आगे पैसे कैसे डालेंगे कंपनी में, लोन दे सकते हैं कि नहीं दे सकते. अच्छा एक काम करते हैं, let's take a loan from my friend, but private limited can't take loan from a friend. Now you've taken a loan which is sitting on your books, and in your first diligence that becomes a problem. So you took a 10 lakh rupee loan from somebody who was not a part of your company. Yes, we did it, we needed it. Oh, but that's not allowed in private limited. So that kind of initial documentation and structuring is something that you should discuss with somebody before you move forward. Because ये छोटी छोटी चीजें becomes a bottleneck for you when you grow. As a founder, you want to focus on this or you want to focus on your product or whatever you're building. And a cleaner structure helps fundraise. I have seen term sheets getting signed even before a company is incorporated. Back in 2014, we created a company. The company incorporation took about 60 days for some reason. But in 15 days of starting the incorporation, the founder had a term sheet. So even before company came into picture, they had a draft term sheet in hand. Why? Founder was a second time founder. They understood how the things work. And even at incorporation, they had the investors interest coming in कि ठीक है incorporation पे थोड़ा ऐसा structure करते हैं वैसा structure करते हैं, and that helped them raise faster, which is knowledge at day zero, which always helps. Let's move forward, right? So I had an idea, I validated, yes, this is something I can solve for. When I started, I did it on my own as an individual, not as a practice with other people. I just tried off with 4 5 founders, found my interest, helped them, got a feedback. Oh, this works. Nobody explained it to us like this. And then we realized, oh, this is something that can be scaled. Co-working was picking up in India. We said if co-working is picking, small business will pick, startups will pick, but who will solve it for them? Let's start solving it for them. Found somebody who can be a best fit founder. I had some interest. He had some interest, but the first point is very important. The complementary skills matter more than similarity. I cannot go back to a co-founder and say, यार मैं भी networking में बहुत अच्छा हूँ, तू भी networking में बहुत अच्छा है. Let's start working together. And technicals में वो भी बड़ा poor है, मैं भी बड़ा poor हूँ, तो what will we do, right? So when you're choosing a co-founder of whom you want to build a company in, right? So there is a co-founder and then there is a key employee and there is somebody who's a consultant. So you need to understand कौन क्या है. Is that a consultant? Is that a co-founder? Is that a key employee? How will you name that person, right? So early on, don't be in haste and say, oh, this person has trusted me, तू मेरा co-founder है, right? So you have to figure out who that co-founder is very, very carefully, and it should be a complementary skill. I know finance, he knows scale, she knows tech, something of that front. The skills should be complementing to each other. Because even if I know finance and they know finance, I'll always be in a quarrel of interpretation by showing I know more than you guys. But if they're complementing to me, I'll say I'll handle finance, you handle marketing. I learn from you, you learn from me. That's how things will move forward. Align on ambition, align on time commitment, align on risk appetite. यार एक काम कर यार, तू जॉब करता रहे कोई बात नहीं, मैं बनाता हूँ इसको, तू बाद में आ जियो. नाउ द रिस्क एपेटाइट इज नॉट द सेम. Somebody left the job, somebody is continuing in the job, somebody is giving it a full time, somebody is giving 2 hours in a day. Somebody is already taken a risk कि भाई मेरा ambition है, मेरे को बनाना है, but the other is like तू बना ले, मैं फिर आ जाऊंगा, right? So the ambitions are not aligned. If even if they are not aligned, you have to be very careful in accepting the way the things are. This is very important to choose a co-founder. Equity is not always fairness. Equality नहीं हो सकती हर चीज में. Your equity compensations can't be the same. They can be same, but then you need to have very strong reasoning for it. Uh, your maybe your salary drawouts cannot be the same. Maybe your time commitments cannot be the same. Maybe your designations cannot be the same. So to begin with from day zero, you say मैं भी बराबर तू भी बराबर पूरा 20 साल तक business ऐसे ही बनाएंगे. Now when you do such kind of भीष्म पितामह वाला commitments, the Mahabharata is supposed to happen, right? So you have to understand that you have to protect the Mahabharata from happening in future. And Mahabharata did not happen because two brothers fought. Mahabharata happened because some seniors didn't take the right call. So one of the main reason is that from day zero, don't say कि सारे co-founders equal हैं. You figure out who is doing what, and that's how you run the things. And you can't have seven co-founders, five co-founders at day zero. That is too much on the on the plate, right? It will always lead to very, very slow decisions. It will always lead to delay in taking decisions. So begin with a lean structure of one or two folks or three folks, even four folks, but you should have a very strong reasoning of why those four complementing people are there. That is very important. You do not give 30% equity because somebody made their first logo on Canva. And one more sentence that I use for this is, if you can buy something, you don't pay it in equity, right? If you don't have money for it, you're paying in equity. Even then, you have to structure it accordingly. For the timing, you don't have money, but tomorrow you will have money. So you'll have to structure it in a way, because equity is very, very expensive. Founders have to realize that if they're building something very big, the perception at the day zero should be at, even if you're giving a portion of your equity or a decimal of your equity, it holds a lot of value. And you can't just go on distributing equity to everybody. So equity for something that can be bought is something that you should avoid. That's the golden rule that we use. Then next, I have decided my idea. I found a solution. I built an MVP. Incorporation करूंगा, accounting करूंगा, उनको ऊपर hook बनाऊंगा, long term journey create करूंगा. Along that journey, will do everything with them. And then I got a co-founder on board. We started a private limited company. And then we decided, oh, you are good at sales, marketing, and talking to folks. I'm very good at technicals. But let's just do one thing. Let's just write it down, everything, right? Prenup. If you guys are aware of what prenup is, a prenup agreement gives you it's a agreement that comes into picture when somebody goes through a divorce, where it's already decided what the spouse will get, right? So it's like, आज तो बहुत अच्छा cordial relation है, या तू मेरा दोस्त है, तू मेरा भाई है, तू spouse है, या तू colleague है, या whatever relationships would have triggered that co-founder relationship or a professional relationship. There is trust, there is integrity, which is built up as a human. But you don't know about time, right? You don't know how things will change when there is value, there is money. So what do? You say, okay, let's just get down on the table and let's just write down everything. अब तू क्या करेगा, मैं क्या करूंगा, define that roles and responsibilities. कितने टाइम तक करेंगे, मैंने अगर एक साल में छोड़ दिया तो फिर, तो use that vesting. What happens on an exit? If one founder is going out, तो क्या होगा? अगर second founder is going out, तो क्या होगा, right? So from that perspective, you can decide few use cases कि इस केस में ऐसे डिसीजन लेंगे, इस केस में ऐसे डिसीजन लेंगे. And what happens in case of for cause uh, decisions? Somebody did something, somebody was found doing something wrong, or it got proven. What happens in those cases? What happens in good exit? What happens in bad exit? Who owns the IP? Now that's a very interesting story to listen to. I was a part of a community. I mean, we started off this call with Mohar as a part of community initiative only. So this, just like that, I was part of a community initiative while doing my professional duties. It was a big enough community that came on board. We guys started just doing it for the sake of community, for the sake of social service, for the sake of, we like being in this profession. But at the back end of it, we realized somebody is doing it for profit, right? So we tried to figure out, when it became big, some of us who were putting in their heart and soul to bring people together, it was like, what's happening? Let's just figure this out. Uh, we figured out that yes, it was a for-profit initiative by three or four folks, and it was good. We said that's fine if we are down now. If we are giving time to it, let's just also discuss it from that front, because we thought it's non-profit. But if you're saying it's for profit, we guys as professionals, we are giving time. Let's just structure it accordingly. But then the red flag and the bomb exploded. The IP for that community was the websites, the social media. That IP was not with the company. That was with one of the founders. And then eventually, when there was no co-founder agreement, uh, possibly the co-founders, when they chose themselves, never talked to each other. They never knew that they have done this mistake. The IP, the website, the social media was with just one founder, and the company closed down in 3 months' time. That's a different story, that some of us got together and restarted the whole thing from scratch after 4 years of hard work. But then the original 4 years of hard work could not proceed because of, not because the idea was bad, not because investor might not have had an interest in it, but because of a co-founder conflict. So the biggest reason of startup failures is, yes, there is timing, there is idea, there is market creation takes time, but we've seen good companies fail because of co-founder and investor conflicts also. So don't keep your IPs to assign to a founder, even after you've incorporated a private limited or any entity for sorts. Assign that IP to your entity. That's very important. And create rules for conflict before they happen. The best of the co-founders agreement are those that are never used, right? So whenever a co-founder agreement is created, we'll say, यार ये वो document है जो आपको कभी use नहीं करना पड़ेगा, right? So you create decision making based on कि यार कल को कुछ खराब होगा तो हम क्या करेंगे, right? So do it that ways. Create this agreement. Don't wait for investors to come in and say ये करो, ये हमारे संग agreement में लिखो in the SHA, and then you get on the table first with the investor, then you come back with your founder. यार ये तो हमने बात किया नहीं था, अब इसको हम आगे कैसे करेंगे? Becomes a little problematic. Wastes a lot of your good time that you should invest in building business. So we've started the company. The idea was good. The MVP was created. I got a co-founder. I sat with him. I told him, yeah, तेरे मेरे complementary skill sets हैं. This is what you will do. This is what I'll do. Decided on the equity, wrote the agreement, and that's where we have reached today, where uh, fourth mistake or a four good things that we figured out. Ideas just don't matter. Validating ideas and execution matters. Incorporation doesn't matter on day zero. Incorporate only when you are ready, when you're confident, when your conviction is there, when you've figured out the first few steps. Incorporation structure is also important. Figure out who that co-founder is very wisely. Use right matrix, which we what discussed. And then once you've figured out who your co-founder is, definitely write it down how you both or how you three or how you four, definitely not five, are going to work together at day zero. So far with me, any questions, guys? I'm just taking small hiccups coming back to the call. Perfect. We'll go to the point five. I'll just pick up some questions here. First time founder didn't get the part about second time founder who had a term sheet from the get go, even before. What's the benefit of this? As in it's not a benefit. I was trying to give you a perception that an investor has when they are putting money into a company. Usually, you should have a structure in place. There should have been a legacy in the business. There should have been something that the investor can look at and then go back and say, "ठीक है यार, I'll give the money to you." But more than that, early stage, the investors are looking at founder. Founder कैसा है? The team. How is the team like? Right? If the team is good, we've seen one or two use cases where incorporation came in later, but they already had a draft term sheet or draft terms ready. कि ठीक है, incorporate कर लो, but we are committing to give funds to you. So then I was saying that people who have had done this journey, the second time founders, also come across such scenarios where investor is already ready to put money into them, but the incorporation and structuring happens a little later. If you apply for IP against company, it's very costly. Can we apply against individuals and then create an agreement between the individual and the company on rights of using the IP? That is correct. If you see the word that I've used the word assign IP to the company. So even if you have say day zero, like I said, research करना है लेकिन protect भी करना है. Very good question, by the way. That if I'm doing a research today, I'll give you an example also. It's yet not out there in the ecosystem. So we have run startup movers forever for the last 12 years, but we thought about a operating system for founders or we started off talking about technology, and 6 months back there was something that we called as life cycle. So we said we'll build something around founder life cycle, thought about it, didn't think about execution. But the first thing we did, and that is one another thing that a founder should do at day zero, before even thinking on how the pitch deck should look like, how should the model look like, we bought the domain. And that's a very interesting story. I put it on the LinkedIn, but somehow there was some confusion on the wrong account. It got posted. 2013, the Startup Movers logo was available to us at as low as 30,000 rupees. We were just starting up, not much of a revenue with us. We're like, domain se kya hi hota hai? So let's just play around with the domain. Let's buy .in. Let's try with something else. Somebody gave a idea, beach mein dash laga lo. So we took a domain, startup-movers.com, and we took that. We said, okay, let's wait for it. Whenever we'll grow, we'll buy it. 3 years down the line, we said, let's just buy the .com domain now, yaar, so we can buy. The price of the domain went up to 1.5 lakh rupees. We said, ठीक है, काम तो चल ही रहा है, कोई बात नहीं. We'll negotiate. We'll bring in a negotiator to buy this domain. Then 3-4 years, we never thought about it. कि ठीक है, सब चल ही तो रहा है, traction आ ही तो रहा है, we are working. But then we thought, yeah, nahi yaar, ye hyphen is creating a problem because we never tried digital marketing, and then we were told yeah, this hasn't been a very big problem. क्या कर रहे हो आप लोग? We went back. जी चलो ठीक है, let's spend that 1.5 lakh rupees now after negotiating. We'll buy that domain. The domain went up to 8.5 lakh rupees, and then it's like, what the hell is happening here? And we've seen people buying domains after fundraise for 30 lakh, 40 lakh, but you're a bootstrap company, right? The decision becomes very difficult. It's the cost benefit starts coming into the mind. Then finally we said, yeah, let's do it. It's a long term commitment. Started negotiating. That person who has it raised the cost to 15 lakh rupees, and now we are still renegotiating. So we missed something at 30,000 at day zero, and that's how the prices have gone up, right? That this is an investment versus an expense decision, right? We were considering it as an expense, rather it was an investment in our IP. So whenever at day zero you think of a trade name, you think of a logo, you think of identity, just first thing protect that identity, because the time when you build it and it gets challenged somewhere, somebody says, "ये तो मेरा IP था, मैंने trademark करा रखा है, you change it. This is my logo. Why are you using the same design? Change it." So that became very important कि क्या चलो entity structure नहीं भी आया, but I found a very interesting name, और वो name नहीं चला जाए. So what we'll do, we'll get the, even if as an individual capacity, apply for a trademark, protect the logo, get the URL, save the links, pay for the domain. At least you have the identity and the IP in place. अभी value नहीं है कोई बात नहीं, because but the day it gets value, it will be huge, right? So IP is very important. Take it in your individual name. That's very important on day zero. But assigning it at the right time is even more important. You can't just run with your team and keep them in dark. कि नहीं नहीं मेरे पास तो आईपी है कंपनी में है, and then one fine day things don't go right, you have the IP human instinct कि नहीं नहीं मेरे को नहीं चलानी, मैं आईपी अपने पास रखूंगा, and all of that things are very common in the ecosystem. So I'll take one last question. What is your opinion on building a startup focused on lifestyle experience and marketing it through social media influencers offering royalties instead of upfront payments? Do you think this will be sustainable in early stages? I'll come back to this once I finish the deck. This is more subjective. I'll move on. So we've moved on to the fifth point now, which is, चलो इक्विटी की बात करते हैं, कंप्लायंस की बात करते हैं. कंपनी स्टार्ट हो गई, ट्रैक्शन आ गया, इक्विटी आ गया, रेवेन्यू आ गया, को फाउंडर आ गया, हमने एक डिसिप्लिन भी बना लिया अपने को फाउंडर एग्रीमेंट से. नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस? We talked about equality. Now, day zero, one of the interesting and the most important things and the most important discussion that should happen, and we also get a lot from first time founders is, यार हम अपनी कैपिटल कैसे बनाएं? 50-50 कर लें. मोस्ट केसेस में लोग बराबर कर लेते हैं. कुछ केसेस में लोग बिल्कुल ही स्क्यूड रखते हैं, अपने पास 95, दूसरे पास 5, 95 5. Some do 50-50, some do 80-20. What is this logic? How do you even decide it? Now, the factors that we talked about in the how to choose founders, right? Complementary skill set, who's giving how much time, who's taking how much risk, who's putting in how much money, who's bringing the network effect, who's bringing the investor, who's building the tech. All of those questions come into the mind. And if you even do a small Google search, or even now with ChatGPT and AI, you can figure out a lot of these vanity metrics or metrics that can help you decide ki, answer these questions. The system will tell you this should be your potential shareholding mix. That's how it should look like. So meaningful ownership, how do you decide it? Very important question. And another important question comes along with it is the ESOP pool. What is the ESOP? We built the company. We two are founders, 50-50, whatever, 60-40, 75-25. We figured out, discuss कि हाँ भाई तू रिस्क ज्यादा ले रहा है, तूने जॉब छोड़ दी है, तो तू 75 रख ले, मैं पैसा डाल रहा हूँ, लेकिन तब भी I will keep 25 because my risk and your risk are not the same. Once I join the company, we'll talk again. This is how we will discuss. But today, because you're taking majority of the risk, you should be 75, I should be 25. And then there is like, nahi, nahi, yaar, I can be 70, you can be 30. Usually discussions don't happen this way. It's the other way around, where people say, I'm taking all the risk. I should be 95, you should be 5. The other person says, I'm putting in the 10 lakhs that you need. How will you run the business without it? So let's do it 80-20. And then you kind of negotiate and reach to that decision, even as a co-founder. And then you say, ठीक है, I'm okay with 80-20, let's go forward. But then it comes, यार एक co-founder तो आना रहता है अभी. There is another co-founder that will join. हमारे पास techie तो है ही नहीं. We don't have a marketing guy. We also need to get the operations person later on. Now, these person will also need equity. कहाँ से देंगे? So one is you can do secondary. You give your own shares to such people. Again, your co-founders agreement will have certain terms. Or you say that we are core owners, we are the promoters. All these employees that are coming in at later date are something that money can buy. And if something can be bought by money, when we'll have it. Right now, why do we want to give a significant equity? Let's just give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% from our pool. How should a big pool we should keep? We will need to give ESOPs to about initially about 10 employees. Then we'll see later on. So let's build our ESOP pool of about 8 to 10%. That's the industry standard, right? So do you think the creation of the pool itself is the solution? Early on, yes. Just decide that what kind of pool you need. Because if you don't, even when an investor comes on board, day zero, they'll say create a pool. And then you need to formalize the pool also. Formalization means you have to file certain documentation, do structuring, create a policy, grant letter, teaching the employees what needs to be done. So usually it doesn't happen on day zero, but it usually happens at a first time founder at some point in first 1 to 2 years, definitely before a fundraise. So be aware of the idea that there is going to be an ESOP pool. Investor might not want to dilute themselves for the investor pool. Today, I was 80-20 with my co-founder, brought in the ESOP pool, never showed it in the cap table. Now investor is saying, "Ki theek hai, take 10% for 10 crores valuation, I'll give you 1 crores." And then you tell him, oh, there is ESOP also. So you'll get diluted because of ESOP. He'll say, I don't care. You get the ESOP first and then come back to us. So you create the pool, dilute yourself, then come back to us, then we'll put in the money. We would just want to retain our 10%. We will not get diluted because of your ESOP pool. Now, there are cases where you go back to investor, रह गया कर लेते हैं, आप भी dilute हो जाओ, and then it wastes time and all of that. So build the pool early. Then advisor equity should be small and milestone linked. I will join as a financial advisor to you, and day zero I'll say I'll be your CFO. I need 20% of your company. Yes, yes, there is 15 years of experience. Very good. That will help us. We'll raise money faster. 20% is a lot, right? I have majority substantial stake and I can take critical decisions in the company, and I can block you as well from taking critical decisions in the company. So decide what you want to give with a very careful consideration of what is being brought on the table. Advisor and an advisor, it's a part-time role. It can be milestone linked. They are doing something for you, link it with a milestone, and then give them the advisory equity. How do you give advisory equity? ये सबसे बड़ा एक प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट आता है where founders ask advisor को पैसा कैसे देंगे, equity कैसे देंगे? Why? Because you can't give ESOPs to advisors. Oh, अच्छा, then what? Let's do one thing. You give your equity to advisors, because if you do fresh allotment, then there is a lot of tax implications. So why don't your co-founders give it? Okay, but what if they don't do the milestone? How will we take that shares back from them? So there are a lot of those things that you can discuss with your person who is advising you from day zero on these compliances, which are a next point. Have something whom you can go back and talk to. You don't take ChatGPT decisions because they can backfire. So, like in advisory case, there is a reverse vesting agreement that helps. There is SAR. There are n number of things that gives benefit to the advisor and protects you also. And then every equity promise must be documented, including ESOPs. Very typical startup problem statement in India. I have a friend, तू आजा भाई, हम तो फोड़ देंगे, तू आजा, हम तेरे को इक्विटी दे देंगे. We'll give you 2% equity from the ESOP pool. You given it on the appointment letter also. You gave the appointment letter, you will get equity worth 2% or 20 lakhs or 2 crores, and started working. सब कुछ बढ़िया बढ़िया हो रहा है. And then one fine day, it's like, oh, we promised you out of ESOP pool, but the pool is not existing in the company. Oh, chalo, let's create the pool. We created the pool, but now it says there is compulsorily 1 year cliff. Wait for 1 year before the shares can be given to the employee. And now this employee who's given the hard work of 2 years and wants a little exit or a little liquidity out of the stock somehow has to wait for 1 more year. Why? Because the documentation was not good. Now that not only creates a integrity or a discipline or a cultural problem, it also can bring in a business continuity problem, which a very key employee. And then finally, there is another advisor who comes. This is my email. You said you will give me SAR or whatever, worth 20 lakhs. Now your valuation is 5 crores or 50 crores. Give me my money. And then it's one the other co-founder is like, यार ये तो हमारा discussion कभी formalize हुआ ही नहीं था. Now that becomes very problematic. It's not a discount coupon. It's equity. It's very expensive. So whatever it is, documentation is very critical, and that's where the compliance comes in. Everything that you do in a private limited company is linked to governance and compliance. You need to inform key critical matters time and again to the authorities, whether it's ROC, whether it's income tax, whether it's GST, whether it's payroll, whether it's HR, whether it's your subject matter expertise in or a industry which talks about specific compliances or disclosures like in NBFC or whatever. Everything comes with some sort of a compliance, which is not burden, but I'll say it's an investment early on. It can block your fundraise. We've seen it a number of times. The call for money happening after 6 months, even in first rounds. Why? When investor came on board, there was nothing in the books. There is nothing ready. Now they have to get everything in order, do the last filings, maintain the registers, get all secretarial documentation. Tax का पैसा रोक के we start manage our working capital. Now the interest on the taxes itself about lakh rupees. We've not paid the TDS and GST की बाद में कर देंगे. Now the TDS was 1 lakh. The penalty on the same is 2 lakhs. The approvals have not been captured. The payments have been happening by just a single sign on, single signatories. Uh, an investor dislike compliance surprises. Now, about 4 or 5 years back, I would have said, yeah, we're doing so many DDs. Why are investors not even budging in, even giving a pushback to the founder? Because mostly they were investing in founders and they were like, ठीक है, we'll fix that governance issue once we come in. Things have changed. Now people expect founders to have basic sanity in place, right? And if it's not there, we've seen rounds getting closed out, term sheets getting cancelled because some basic information that founder committed to a investor factually was wrong. So in the haste time or in the interest of time or just in haste, they responded something to the investor. When they started to look at their books carefully, things were not managed. Investor took it as a wrong, willful statement and they blocked the round. So it is investment that you do in compliance on day zero. It's not an expense. So whenever you go around looking out for the right folk of managing your governance and compliance and books and secretarial compliance and everything else, you might suffer on a apple to apple comparison. मेरे मामा जी सीए हैं, मेरे घर में कोई फ्रेंड सीए है, and all of that happens. And it's not bad. There is help available to everybody in the very near circle. But the startup ecosystem wants something different as a language and a mindset. So whenever you engage with somebody, ensure you have an end-to-end support and not a piecemeal support there. Because as a founder, you don't want to end up, if out of 10 I did five, but five are left. Not an issue. Five I did, but the remaining five will come back and bite you. So yes, it's a boring space. Your product or a service matters the most, but you still have to consider it as an investment and not an expense. And then, my friends, this will become a easier thing to solve when you go for a fundraise. Contract comes before comfort. Do everything in writing. Customer, vendor, employee, consultant. Don't use samples as far as possible. Again, invest a little. Get the draft master agreements prepared. Do NDAs, IP assignments, payment terms properly. If you're not collecting money on a contractual agreement, even though your books say you're a profitable company, but you don't have liquidity. Why? Because your clients has not paid, the terms have not been identified so correctly. So they are utilizing that. ये आपके invoice में तो कुछ है ही नहीं. Payment term 45 days लिखा है तो हम तो 45 पे करेंगे, ये तो बात ही नहीं, and all of that. So all those terms have to be very carefully put in. Have website and app terms and privacy basics also very important under the current scheme of things, where the laws are becoming very strict around cyber security, privacy, data protection. So it's important that day zero you start talking about how data security will function. WhatsApp is not a contract management system. Usually people start running their business on WhatsApps. Decisions have starts happening early on WhatsApp. Again, whatever you build at day zero as a governance standpoint, that itself becomes the base for you as you move on. You can't say, यार ठीक है बाद में देख लेंगे पहले प्रोडक्ट बना लेते हैं. I believe I come from that background, so I believe that it's a culture more than anything else. So even if you have to do 1% of that whole 100, the intent and the governance alignment should always be there from a founder कि यार नहीं सब कुछ रिटर्न में करना है. We should know everything what's happening. Money discipline is very important. Know the difference between revenue, cash flow, and profit. If your profit and loss says कि I have done 1 crore of top line or revenue or sales, but the money in bank is zero, there is no point. Your cash is the king, right? That's the term we use. Cash is the king. If you don't have cash in bank, doesn't doesn't matter. You always be in a jeopardized situation to solve for things. Your profit, even if it's a material profit, if you don't have cash, you'll always struggle to raise funds. You'll always struggle to raise debt. You'll always struggle to run the business properly. So track where you are burning, how you can improve it, how much of a runway is left. Today I'm burning 20 lakhs per month, 1 crore in account, 5 months of runway left. Should you raise now? Should you raise after 3 months? Are you already late? All those decisions should run in your mind. Your business and your business and personal spend should be separate. The biggest problem we see is one credit card, 200 transactions, 180 hour personal, 20 hour business. Now, at the end of the month, the founder is segregating both and giving it to the finance team. Acha, ye 20, please, can you please reimburse this to me? Oh no, I found one more. And you start spending more on that front. And then some point of time, your personal expense also gets started recording in the books. And at some point of time, there is questioning that happens. And the last one is very, very critical. Founder's salary should be deliberate and not emotional. I have started the business, raised 20 lakhs. Oh yeah, my market salary is 3 lakhs per month. मैं तो निकालूंगा. That doesn't work at all, right? You can't be emotional in what you have to take out from the company because you're giving your time to it. There is a lot of compromise that happens. There's a lot of sacrifice that happen at day zero because you have to build the company first and think about yourself later, right? So your function of how much of your salary should be a outcome of how much money you can make or how much of money you are utilizing with a discipline. Not because, oh, I left the job at 2.5 lakhs, 1 lakh to mujhe nikalna hai, right? So with a 5 lakh bank balance, 1 lakh, if you give yourself in a dire situations, things don't work. So startups don't fail because of, like I said, poor ideas or timing. Startup also fail because they run out of cash before they know. So now their books, they've been looking at कि we are profitable, revenue अच्छा हो रहा है, trend बहुत अच्छा है, वो cash नहीं है books में. और बिना cash के how will you run the business, right? So cash is the king. Liquidity is the king in business. So be always on top of numbers. That is very, very important. Raise smart, build for diligence. Again, governance is day zero issue also. Fundraising is fuel, not success. So people go out there. There's so much of PR that happens. X raise funds from Y, and there are those photos that come out on LinkedIn. So much of pomp and show happens. But trust me, it's not easy to have an investor on board, have that money in the account because there is a lot of questions, there is a lot of governance, there is a lot of back and forth questioning, there is a lot of lack of freedom in decision making that comes along with it, right? So that is very important thing to say that fundraise is fuel, not success. पैसा raise करके PR करके you're not a very successful founder. Company will close down. If you're giving a fuel to an idea, so your idea still matters. Are you building value? Are you creating value? Value creation is important, not valuation, right? So this fundraise helps should, along with the valuation, should definitely also add in the visible value creation as well. And you raise capital. I always tell the cohort founders that I work with that you need to raise capital when you don't need it. Because the day you need it, you lose that negotiating term itself. If you're dire in need of a capital, the market is going to burn you down and then give you money. But if you're doing good, and then if somebody then kind of coming back to you, let's just talk. Do talk to them. Raise the funds when you don't need it. Raise when capital helps accelerate, right? Have the money in the bank. Investors at day zero, I don't have data. What they will look at? They will look at your team, their academic background, their experience, their ambitions, their alignment to the idea. Uh, what's the market size? How much has been the traction? Are you clear on what you are building? Is there still a lot of ambiguity in what the final product solution would be? And then you move into things like, I don't have anything today. How will you value us? Then it comes to a decision of it's a B2B SaaS product. It's a SaaS product. These are how market multiples work. It's your first round. You should not dilute more than 10 to 15% of whatever you are raising. As of now, you're raising 1 crore, but you've given 50% of your company, then there's nothing left. So early stage dilutions are more from protecting founders' interest and then giving maximum to the investor and creating a balance between the two. And not every startup needs VC money. We never raised bootstrapped startups have become. So there's a very interesting story coming out for a sari startup that I read. I'm forgetting the name. I work with a lot of fabric or two or three entrepreneurs that I've seen in the sari landscape who raise money and they're struggling to. It's a D2C. They are D2C company struggling to still coming to green. Its marketing is expanding, but now there is a startup that comes out of nowhere and then it's like, oh, how they have cracked a similar ecosystem by just being bootstrapped. Now, these are very interesting stories to look out for. That it's not necessary to raise funds. You can build a startup with a bootstrapped approach as well. So funding is petrol. You still need an engine, right? So engine matters more. The engine power should be good enough. No matter how much fuel you put in, you are in this for the longer journey. That's all matters. And build for diligence from day one. Data room is very ready. Very keep a data room which should be clean and ready. What is a data room? Today, when you start getting a checklist from an investor, it would be about 120, 139 items, and you send it to your outsourced consultant or an in-house admin guy. You just please send it to them. And then you start going back and figuring out कौन सी चीज कहाँ है, मेरा मेमोरेंडम वहां पड़ा है, आर्टिकल वहां पड़ा है, एम्प्लॉयर एग्रीमेंट वहां पे था, को फाउंडर एग्रीमेंट वहां पे था, ओ वो तो बनाया नहीं, चलो बना लेते हैं. They also talk about revenue metrics, how who's your biggest customer, what's the average revenue per customer. Then you go back to your CNC, अरे बना के दे दो. Now that checklist that should ideally have been ready for you took about 10, 12 days to prepare, and then investor knows, अच्छा basics are not there. चलो कोई बात नहीं, we'll fix it for them. The perception changes altogether versus, oh, we are interested in your product and idea. Let's just talk. This is the terms. Oh, we need some data points for our diligence team. Will need it. They'll send it to you. Checklist comes in within 1 hour. You send them the Google Drive. Oh, this everything was ready. Why don't you just start the process? The perception itself altogether changes, right? Oh, these guys are ready. Let's just talk about the next raise that we need to do for them. So keep a good data room clean, data room ready. Track your cap table, compliance, contracts, and IP that they should be up to date. Rent agreement था expire हो गया, website domain था expire हो गया. There is some license which was to be renewed every year. Already expired है, लेकिन we are running the business, and these things will come back and bite you. Maintain basic financial discipline. Do accounting month to month. Look at your MIS by 10th of the next month. Data driven decision is very important. There's a Hindi saying, Data ek ram, bhikari sari duniya. I replace that data with data, right? Data is going to be the next gold, right? And if you have the data with the right set of data with you, there are a lot of beggars out there who will be after your life to have it. And your own data of your what the baby that you have built up, the startup that you have built, that discipline is very important, because now your storytelling and what your numbers are saying are getting reconciled properly. People come back and ask cross questions even at early stage. You told us about this, but your MIS is saying something else. Why is that? Now be prepared with those questions. You're looking at Shark Tank pitches, right? The best of the ones are those. Few of them have been our portfolios that gave very, very crisp number breakdowns. And that's what, if you see on on the other side, investors also like catching hold of the numbers of the business. So that discipline should come from day zero, and build as if investor will inspect tomorrow. Don't say कि यार अभी बना लेते हैं, 6 महीने बाद राउंड रेस करेंगे तब देख लेंगे. Assume कल आपका diligence होने वाला है, and then somebody is going to come back to you and say, ठीक है दिखाओ क्या है आपके पास. Now that diligence can be from authority, that is diligence from an investor, that diligence can be from anybody, any stakeholder in the ecosystem. So we talked about 10 things. Like I said, for paucity of time, we'll just start summarizing on things that we talked about and then take your questions. We talked about ideas just don't matter, execution does. Talked about few failures as a career choice that I took as an example. We talked about how incorporation decisions should be taken very carefully. Which state uh, will you incorporate in? Where will you open the account? What will your authorized and paid up capital be? What kind of entity you will create today? Whether proprietorship, partnership, are you a for profit, not for profit, and all of that. How should your co-founder mix look like? Co-founder conflicts are biggest reasons of failures. The co-founder agreement is like a prenup agreement. Definitely have that in place, even if you have not raised funds. Build it on day zero. Assign the IPs. Ensure you have the website URLs. You are having the domain name on day zero. Even if you have taken it on your individual names, be it. But when you are a team, that should come back to the company. Talked about the use case where that became a problem. The cap table showcases the skin in the game. Plan it properly. Don't go after equality. That doesn't work. Go with the right set of variable matrix. How will the cap table look like? Choose your investor well. Make the ESOP pool. Again, few examples I can give where the companies have closed down because one of the investor became finicky. Despite of being a investor on board, they started off a similar product in a different geography. Damn similar product, and then they had a conflict with the founder. They had substantial stake in the original company also, and it ended up in a very bad soup. The startup never picked up. Again, who your investor base is, how much of control you are giving it to them. Day zero, have a very good clarity at what kind of dilution or what kind of freedom or of control you want to give. Don't give equity for something that you can buy. We talked about that. The cost of compliance will always be less than cost of non-compliance. So have financial discipline coming in at day zero. One most important thing that we also talked about was raise it when you don't need it, right? So if you are planning a fundraise, raise it when you are in a comfortable position versus raising it when you are just 2 to 3 months away from a zero cash date or runway is just for 3 months left, right? So these are few other mistakes which founders do make, having a wrong or delayed incorporation. आप खुद कर लेंगे, we'll do it from portals, and the incorporation itself took about 3 months, 4 months, good enough time wasted. Equal equity to all three co-founders. Again, one became uh, hostile, shut down the business. If you don't have vesting from co-founders agreement or a shareholder agreement, it hampers a lot when some founders go out of the company. You just can't distribute your equity to anybody or an advisor or a consultant. And then poor documentation and weak compliance hygiene is going to come back and bite you and take a lot of your time. So follow the basics of what we just talked about. Even if you are doing 6 7 out of these many things that we talked about, you are still better than a lot of first time founders who are out there, because like I said, this is a mindset and a language which is very difficult to crack, but those who do are in it for a very long term success, right? We still have more than 90% failure rates, but that doesn't mean you should not try. So if you're trying, why not try it the right way? So be ready, be ready like a first time founder, solve for all these basics and build it right before you build it big. Be bold with the vision, understand what you are trying to solve, be very clear about it, be disciplined with structuring, we talked about it. And always remember that your diligence is just around the corner. You've started it, you'll need fundraise to blitz scale. Even if you're bootstrapped, at some point of time, you might need debt from a bank. Build it in a way that that happens faster. You can experiment with a lot of things in the business. You can even pivot. There are so many pivots that we see. A legal tech company pivoting to delivery companies. All of that things happens in this ecosystem. You can always experiment with product pricing, but you cannot compromise and experiment with few very basic things, which is who my co-founder is, what is the equity compensation, what are the compliances involved, and the documentation is like pervasive, right? This is basics of starting at day zero. I will be happy to pick up your questions if any. I'll go to the chat box, but if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hands. A late technical co-founder is coming in at 10 to 12% equity. He's currently shown as an additional director in the ROC. Oh, that's very practical. He's building in the app and should be ready in 2 3 months. Right now, the shares haven't been allocated to him, but it is promised. Is this a problem? Yes, very big problem. The entire IP and tech would be in his name. So there will be business continuity problem in case things that were verbally promised doesn't go through. Again, the agreement has to be seen. His other co-founders bring in a lot to the table in terms of distribution, and they are already making around 1 crore revenue every year. Again, now in this case, what has happened is there's too much that is being decided on integrity basis. Definitely, this company, if they are doing about 1 crore revenue per year, which is about 12 crores, if I give them a 12x, 10x, or 12x multiple, so 12, 13 crores of valuation bare minimum, could be more also, I don't know. Now you're saying that 10 12% means 1 to 2 crores of equity has to exchange hands. There's huge tax implications coming in here, right? It should have been structured properly. There should have been brains going into it कि ठीक है secondary कर लो, reverse vest कर लेना, let's save tax for all your co-founders. So all of that thinking should go through in this. He's currently shown as additional director, means he's already having a fiduciary responsibility in the company as well. He's building the apps and should be ready in 2 months. Even if that's the case, there should always already be an agreement that should say that all the IP that is getting created out of this arrangement will belong to the company. So I believe that IP agreement should already be in place, and if not, that should have been the first document to execute. The shares have not been allocated. Like I said, it's still possible that the same can still be done at a tax efficient manner. This can be looked at and be guided upon. His other co-founders bring a lot on the table, of course, complementary skill sets. But like I said, if these things in executions become a problem, then again there is a big risk of IP assignment not being there, investor saying that this doesn't even belong to you. How can I even look at it? And then this equity transfer brings in a lot of tax implication as well. So Still, a lot can be solved, but that has to be solved right now, ASAP, before things get out of hands. It's not something a dangerous situation, but it's a situation that has a lot of open risk involved, and those risks should be closed. Another question is LLPs seem like a great balance of everything for company incorporation, especially for services of bootstrap business. Only issue is the 5% tax benefit that private limited give, but otherwise LLPs seem much better. Yeah, so if you have to ever raise funds, LLP is not into picture. You'll have to convert it to a private limited. So the biggest thing is if day zero, you have to raise funds in 6 months to 1 year. Why not have private limited on day zero? But you mentioned for bootstrap business and services, it's fine. Yes, the tax rate is a 5% better in private limited, but the distribution in LLPs are tax free. So even if I pay 30%, then it's sorted, right? The profits that the partners take out of the LLPs are tax free. So the distribution in a closely held private limited company becomes better versus like a say a private limited company where you pay the 25%, but then for distributing the retained earnings, it's again taxed. So it's double taxation on distribution, which is not the case in LLPs. So LLPs are good for family-owned businesses or bootstrap businesses which does not want to raise funds. And even if they are okay to pay the 5%, there is still significant liquidity that can be generated through profit distribution, which is tax-free. I am on the side of technical co-founders, so want to cover his base. Get the shares transfers executed right away. And even if there is a reverse vesting agreement to be done, get it done to create confidence amongst both sides. Distribution means that so the question is, what do you mean by distribution? The distribution means that if say today I have done a 1 crore rupee profit in the company, private limited. Now I need to distribute that to my shareholders, of course, or key stakeholders who are shareholders also. Now that distribution is either through dividend or through buyback or through other means, which is again taxable, right? So I already paid tax on 1 crore at 25%, so I'm left with say 75 lakhs. Now, when I'll distribute this 75 lakhs again as dividends or buyback, the receiver again pays tax based on their slab rate. So that becomes double taxation. So I again pay about say if I take maximum marginal rate 30%. So again I pay about 25 lakh rupees more. So the net liquidity would only be about for 45 50 lakhs versus an LLP. If I have 1 crore rupee of tax, I pay the 30%, which is about 30 lakhs, 70 lakhs is left that gets distributed. On the distribution, there is no tax. When so the partners are free to take out 35 lakhs each if they are 50% partners. The profits that they take out of LLP are tax free. Yeah. Okay. We have somebody who's, yeah, go ahead. I did see oh yes, there is somebody who's raised the hand, AR Legal Advocates. Can you unmute? Can I ask them to unmute?
Yes.
Sadia, can you unmute or tell me how to do that? Oh yeah, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Gandhar Elson, could you help unmute him? Oh, we still can't hear you. We still yet to unmute you.
Just a minute.
Yes.
So then I'll take that another question in the chat bot. Chat box says, "What is your opinion on building a start?" Oh yeah, sorry, I skipped that question. I should have picked up. What is your opinion on building a startup focused on lifestyle experiences and marketing it through social media influencer, offering royalties instead of upfront payments? Do you think this approach will be sustainable in the early stages? Yes and no, both. Yes, practically it would be possible, but then you will have to figure out because the tax authorities work differently. They consider consideration which are other than cash also to be counted for compliance standpoint, right? So if you're offering some royalties, we'll have to figure out whether they will be counted as consideration. Is there any GST implication on that? How will that be considered as an income? So there could be ways and means of showing it as some token or some coins or something to make it look like a tax neutral structure. But like I said, a little complicated, but practically possible to do. This approach will be sustainable in early stage, but you will have to deep dive and do a little opinion on how the tax structure will look like for this. Again, another question is from Sudipto, who says, for advisory equity, I assume those will come from founder equity. Will this be a problem for fundraise if multiple advisors show up on cap table? No. You should have strong rationale of whom you brought in as an advisor. Of course, with having 5 to 7 advisors would be a problem. 2 or 3 might not be a problem. Like I said, if they're complementing or they're bringing on table something which is very valuable to you, multiple advisors is not a problem. Yes, that equity comes in from founders share itself, because if you allocate fresh equity to them, there is a possibility. But again, we have to figure out from tax efficiency standpoint whether, given the numbers in your company, does it make sense to do the fresh allotment, or the secondary will make more sense. So it is a little subjective decision based on which stage your company is at, what are the numbers looking like. There is also a format of giving SAR, stock appreciation rights, to the advisors, which is you don't give them equity per se, but you tell them, okay, we will give you SAR versus for 10 lakh rupees today, our valuation is 10 crores. And now 5 years down the line, you get an exit for 50 crores, no further dilution, which is 5x. So now you have to pay 50 lakh in cash to that consultant, right? So there is no equity dilution that has happened, but there is significant cash that gets generated for the consultant. It is not recognized for private limited companies, but it's still used in the startup ecosystem as a little jugaad. Yeah, can you unmute yourself now, or how is it? AQR Legal Advocates.
I think he can.
Hello,
Yes,
good afternoon, sir.
yes, please.
Yes, how you doing?
Good, good, good.
Uh, Basically, I just doing a startup as well, and I'm a practicing lawyer as well. And most of the time, I do get the question from the IT people and from the IT startups that what kind of buckets they should be creating in terms of getting the trademarks, in getting the copyrights, patents. Basically, what I want to say in a concise manner is कि अगर कोई स्टार्टअप है जो टेक बेस्ड रहता है उसको जब वो ऐप क्रिएट करते हैं या ऑल दीज चीजें जब वो क्रिएट करते हैं तो बेसिकली उनको क्या क्या चीजें इन टर्म्स ऑफ आईपी किस तरीके से सेग्रीगेट करनी चाहिए एंड एट व्हाट स्टेजेस दे शुड बी सेग्रीगेटिंग इट बिकॉज दिस इज द बिग क्वेश्चन इन दैम कि how we are going to once they are starting building the apps so they just wanted to know कि उसको किस तरीके से segregate किया जाए and what at what steps the trademark should be filed and for what like if they are launching some song or music or whatever they are doing digitally so how they should be planning those things.
Yeah, so there are 2, 3 iterations when we say IP, right? One is when you say trademark, trademark is identity, a logo, a word name, a design, right? So that gets trademarked. That nobody should copy our identity, right? So trademark should happen day zero. Whenever you are confident on this is our long-term strategy, this is one brand that I will, whatever that app name is, whatever that company name is, whatever that brand identity you want to give out into the market, the trademark happens at day zero, right? Now we come on to what they are building. So assume they are building something around media landscapes, songs, pictures, or something. Then you come on to copyrights, right? You need to get the copyrights done for that. But now the key tricky part that we've seen in the IT ecosystem that we are also trying to solve with our little knowledge with IP advocates that we work with is it's very difficult to IP a code, right? IT codes, the source codes are, I've not seen people kind of doing IPs around source codes. That's why there's a lot of security that goes into it. What does get IP protection is a patent, which is a research or a scientific validation that can be proved. Now there it could be a AI or something of sorts, which includes a little bit of hardware and a software both. But pure play software codes is something at least I have seen a challenge on to get it, say, protected in an IP from a copyright standpoint or a patent standpoint. It doesn't fit into either of the 3 categories that I talk about. I could have a limited knowledge to this, but if I'm advising a founder, trademark is something we definitely say on day zero. Whenever there is a little literature or a media or something of that sort, which is like falling into the copyright bucket, we tell them get it copyrighted. And then when it's a scientific discovery or a research that involves something that can be patented, then we advise them to go for a patent advocate and get it done. But one struggle we've seen is the source codes. We've never seen them getting done through an IP. At least I have not seen them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Feel free to raise your hands. I have another question in the chatbot, which says, where's the question? Yeah. Oh, there are two. One is a minor 16-year, Sahil is asking a minor 16-year-old boy who's a prodigy in AI and cybersecurity. Nice, many are. Has won many awards nationally and internationally, has built an MVP of an AI model, currently being tested with couple of SMEs and a founding engineer. Can his equity be governed by an SHA with the guardian structure? Yes, that is possible. You will need to appoint a guardian through a legal process, and then this could be doable. This is definitely doable. Because I say this because there is a possibility of a demat account for a minor as well, which is run by a parent. In any case, if that's the case, a minor can hold shares, but minor cannot execute contractual obligations, which will then be done by a guardian who will be appointed through a power attorney or something. That is practically possible. You have to consult a legal counsel on practically how this needs to be done, but this is possible. It has been done. Yeah, that's possible. Mother, father, yeah, that will be done. We have an Indian investor. Oh, there is another question, which is again by Sudipto. We have an Indian investor from US who wants to invest in our startup. We have agreed to do a safe at 15% discount. Do we create the safe agreement immediately or wait for closing to funding round? Any tax implication for foreign angel investment? One thing you will struggle is whenever you're raising money from foreign investors, it always has to be a valued round, priced round. You will need to do a valuation because as soon as you will approach a bank and ask them that there is an investor who's putting in money at convertible debt at 15%, they will straightforward say no, it's not possible. So you will have to relook at the instrument. I don't know if very recently the AD norms, AD bank norms have changed, but we've struggled a lot in the last 3 months where when we approach the authorized bank, your bank, because when you bring in money, you have to give them compliance reportings. The banks have been very finicky that without the valuation report, it will be difficult for us to proceed on this. So figure that out, whether it's a price round, first of all, you have a valuation report in place or not. And do we create the safe agreement immediately? Yes. Again, if it's an agreement that can be priced and created, you can create it, but you will have to wait. You should wait for the closure of the valued funding round and make it a part of that only, because you will not be able to close it. Your money, even if your money comes in, you will not be able to convert it and use it. Your banks will kind of ask for a lot of documentation, which you will not be able to fulfill, and you'll have to send it back. No tax implication for valued investment, but in this case we'll have to see that this if it's in any case it's not allowed, but even if for the sake of the question we say that it's allowed, which is a 15, you're giving a 15% discount per se, so there is no tax implication till the time there is exit in the instrument. Perfect. I would be happy to take a couple of questions more, or if there are no more questions, over to Mohar team.
All right. I think, that was sum up of a really good session, Sambhav. I think if there are more questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. I think we do have a couple of minutes that we can take up more questions. But while we're at that, Sambhav, before we quickly wrap up, if you had to recommend any books to founders to read, what would those books be?
To be very honest, I have not been to a lot of books. Being on ground and having a real-time experience has helped me more. But I've read a couple of them. 0 to 1 is one, by Peter Thiel. That was a good one. There's another called Tool of Titans. That's another good one.
Nice, nice. I think these are like good books and easy to find books.
I mean, these are very specific to
Yeah.
building businesses, but then it's like, then there is this Ikigai, which is a very small book that you can read.
Yes.
That's a good one.
It's a
And then
challenge.
there is another called Alchemist. And my favorite one is it's called The Boy, the Fox, the Mole, the Horse. That's the name of the book.
Love it. It's a
Uh,
beautiful illustration book.
Correct.
It's a quick read. It's filled with colors. It's a
It,
must. It's a
it's
must.
a book for times when you are struggling and you find the answers
Yeah.
by reading it again and again and again.
Yeah, and it's a very so sweet, very good vibe book. Sambhav,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for doing this session for us. It's been a perfect evening and a lot of insights. I'm sure a lot of people have gotten practical insights on how to really go forward in their founder journey. And while I'm suggesting all of this, there is also a little bit about Mohar that I would like to give up. Before that, I would like to tell I am Sadia. I'm from the Mohar team. So at Mohar, we truly believe that founders need access to clarity and support while we're building that, similar to what this session was about. That's exactly why we're building an intelligent first platform to help startups discover the right capital, opportunities, and ecosystem that support more efficiently. We have a question in from Sylvia. Is that a question or are you able to see that?
It's not a question.
Oh,
Point noted. Yeah, go ahead.
perfect. I think that's a wrap. I think we can quickly wrap up. Thank you so much. Alongside with a lot of focus conversations are going to happen, a lot of community conversations. So stay tuned. And if you folks still have any more questions, do go back to the community and post your questions there. I'm sure there'll be a lot of pondering that will happen after the session because it was such a heavy and good insights. Ask these questions in our channel. We are very excited to see the questions that are going to happen. And Samba, what a brilliant session. You took us through. There were no heavy jargons. There were no heavy brainstorming stats that we had to mug up. They were basics. They were good insights. Samba, I think it's brilliant. Thank you so much for
Thank
doing this.
you for having me. I've learned that language from founders only, so thanks to all the founders.
Nice. I think yeah, that's actually true. Keeping it simple matters the most. And again, we are at Mohar. We are here for you to build a stronger founder community through these sessions, through office hours, in ecosystem collaboration, just like this. Again, from the Startup Movers teams, thank you again for being there. Gandhav, Elson, anything that you would like to add? Gandhav and Elson are again from the Mohar team. So if there are any questions, feel free. Anything that you would like to add on before we quickly wrap up?
Nothing from my side. Fabulous session. Everyone learned a lot. I also got to know a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yes, perfect. I think that's a wrap. Thank you all for spending your
Thank you for
time.
having me.
Yes, Sambhav. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful evening. And great. And also, if you would like to know more about Mohar, just drop in the question in the community. We will definitely reach out and help you out with Mohar access. Great. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day.